I ain't hearing anyone out on this. Gardevoir, one of the most memorable Pokemon from Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. Maybe because it was green, all the best Pokemon from Generation 3 are green. A powerful Psychic-type Pokemon that serves as the final evolution to the Ralts line, there's no way you were able to miss it. Because early on in the game, you'll meet Wally, a young boy who you're tasked with looking after as he attempts to capture his own Pokemon to head out on a journey. And the very first Pokemon he encounters is a Ralts, which I'm gonna have to call BS on. On this early route in the game, you'll see mostly Zigzagoon, Poochyena, Lotad, and Seedot, their frequency depending on which version of the game you're playing. But consistently in all versions, Ralts will have a pretty low encounter rate. Their meeting was truly a plot contrivance of destiny. Obviously, this is all scripted and is actually a catching tutorial that serves some of the main story for this one character. Now, isn't that a novel concept? The point is that it's pretty unlikely that you as a player would have seen one yourself before experiencing this event. So seeing this young boy you've just met meet a brand new creature and being given one for free is quite a way to be introduced to this Pokemon. Of course, we battle Wally once when we get to Mauville City, and again at the end of Victory Road when he has a team of fully evolved Pokemon and Gardevoir as his ace. Unless you're playing Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire where he has a Gallade instead. Anyway, in the original Generation 3 games, Gardevoir was able to maintain this air of mystery and mystique around it. Such an elegant design for a Pokemon that isn't the easiest to obtain that serves as one of the final climactic battles just before becoming the champion of Hoenn. I absolutely must have one for myself. Catching and training a Ralts at this point in the game will actually be an uphill battle. Sure, it learns Confusion pretty early, but after that comes Double Team and Teleport, which won't help it gain levels any faster. Upon evolving into Kirlia, things get a little easier, and finally Gardevoir makes this a pretty capable Pokemon. I just love the idea of this evolution line. Ralts is a pretty small and quiet little guy that has the ability to sense the emotions of humans, even though it doesn't really show itself all too often. It only draws close to people with positive emotions, so I guess that serves as some cool lore as to why it was the first thing to pop out when Wally showed up. Sure, he was a bit whiny at first, but overall he's just a baby boy in the same way his partner Pokemon was. And because of all of this, I really do wish we would have gotten to see him more often throughout the main story of these games. There is a pretty good moment in the middle of his journey where we find him wanting to challenge a Pokemon gym way too soon before he's even ready for it. Because we discover that not only has he kept a team of only one Pokemon, but it's still just a Ralts he hasn't gotten to evolve yet. On one hand, I was always disappointed that this was such an easy battle and it didn't last very long, but it still shows how even though Wally was able to make it this far, he still hasn't really grown all that much. Which is why it's so impactful when he makes his grand debut at Victory Road with a formidable team. It was only after he was able to mature emotionally that his Ralts was able to fully evolve, and I really like how this is where most people would first see a Gardevoir, because we'll learn from its Pokédex entries that yeah, it's pretty powerful and has some amazing abilities, but each entry highlights how this Pokemon will also do anything for its trainer. It's a way of showing how after growing together with a Pokemon that can feel your emotions, you'll have one of the most loyal partners that you could ask for. It's things like this that really makes me wish we would have seen Wally adapted into the anime or at least some kind of long-form spin-off anime. It would give the opportunity to really flesh out his relationship with Gardevoir. Though, speaking of relationships, it's actually really interesting to see what happened to Gardevoir in a meta sense of the franchise. This wasn't the first or even the hottest human-shaped Pokemon up until this point, which I hate the fact that that's an official term, but it was definitely the most prominent relative to the selection from generations 1 to 3. And some of the fandom definitely did think of it a certain way, which I don't necessarily hate and I don't think it ruins a Pokemon, as long as it isn't excessive. But the thing is that in the case of Gardevoir, I genuinely think the Pokemon Company and Game Freak themselves are the one to blame for this. It isn't really a case of fans misinterpreting or making things up for fan art or fan fiction or anything like that. The way that this Pokemon was represented in official media reinforced the idea of promoting it for its beauty and cuteness. In the beginning, I think Gardevoir was actually pretty neutral, with a Japanese name like Surnite, and the fact that Wally's was a male, I think was pretty clear what the interpretation was meant to be. It's like a psychic guardian Pokemon that can sense what you're feeling and will remain by your side like a knight would to their king. That's the whole point of this Pokemon. The rounded head isn't meant to look like hair, it's meant to look like a helmet, and the flowing bottom half is meant to represent how it's unaffected by gravity. But in Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, we were introduced to Gallade, a branched evolution for Kirlia that could only evolve from a male while using a Dawnstone. And I do really like Gallade's design, and it kinda leans even more into the idea of being a knight. Though with its mere existence, Gardevoir began to get feminized, and since then they've only gone deeper. Things like its appearance in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon as part of Team Charm, the way in which the art of a trading card game has evolved, how it's been used in merchandising. This isn't as blatant as what other anime series will do with their human characters. I mean, Pokemon isn't trying to make you want to date Gardevoir. It's pretty clear that they recognize how beloved and marketable this monster has become, and they just want you to think that it's really cute and pretty. And that isn't exactly a bad thing. I mean, the entirety of Pokemon is about picking a handful of adorable Skrunkos to love and buy all the merchandise of. However, there was a massive shift in the perception of Gardevoir that came to a head in Generation 6. This was when we were given the brand new Fairy type. A way to rebalance the game for better or for worse, brand new Pokemon were introduced and several old ones were given Fairy as a new typing, and among them was Gardevoir, which seems kind of odd. For many of the other Pokemon, it made sense with how mystical they were and some of them just had the word fairy in their names, but I actually don't see much of a reason for choosing Gardevoir. Its defining characteristics were that it resists gravity and was even able to harness and control it for attacks to a degree. And of course there was a whole thing about being able to connect with trainers through their emotions. I guess you could argue that fairy fits in the sense of the emotions, but at the end of the day its primary typing of psychic still embodies at best. So why would they give Gardevoir the fairy type? It's because they turned it into a princess. Mega Evolution allowed for many old Pokemon to get a new lease on life with a brand new design, and for Gardevoir that meant making the flowy bits around its leg into a definitive dress shape. They also made it the signature Pokemon of Diantha, who also carried the elegance of a princess. But that wasn't enough because Gallade also got a Mega Evolution that doubled or tripled down on the Guardian Knight motif, further driving home the duality between these two. No longer is Wally the one with a Gardevoir, he has a Gallade now. And Diantha is the one with a Gardevoir. I won't exactly come out and say that I hate the changes they've made to these Pokemon. I actually do find a lot of the promotional items and images and cards to be really cute, and I think Mega Gardevoir looks great alongside Diantha. I just find it so fascinating how this all happened over the course of a few generations. I'm sure there were some fans who dislike the direction they've gone in from this perspective, but I think for the most part this was one of those gradual things that most people didn't notice or just expected because of some hyperbolic interpretations early on. No doubt there are Pokemon designed from the get-go that are meant to elicit certain reactions, but looking back at Gardevoir in Generation 3, I just don't get that. I think this is one that became something else as time went on. I certainly had never thought of Gardevoir in much of that way, I just thought Ralts was cool. I was more of a Lopunny guy myself. With our modern interpretations of his Pokemon, I don't dislike much of it. For one thing, the interaction between Gardevoir and Gallade is actually kind of neat, especially in their Mega forms. The idea of a princess Pokemon isn't a bad thing inherently. I just see that Gardevoir's initial purpose as a Pokemon was drastically changed, and I'm still gathering my feelings on the topic after making this realization. Though I will say we saw the idea of Gardevoir and Gallade being so different kind of flipped on its head with the introduction of a recent Paradox Pokemon, Iron Valiant. It's a fun idea that combines elements of both Gardevoir and Gallade into this one cybernetic warrior. Honestly, just a genius execution. I'm at least happy that we did get so many amazing card arts featuring it. Some of the more recent ones show it as a loyal Pokemon to humans in a way that fits the original description, though rather than seeing it in battle, it's portrayed as more of a lifelong partner or family member that sticks around no matter what. Specifically, the illustration rares of Scarlet and Violet base set are the ones that just really do it. I'm so glad we got these, and I really want to go back to opening packs to try and pull the rest of the evolution line. It's just a really nice story that progresses across 3 different cards as a Ralts starts out with a family and then eventually grows into a Gardevoir along with the rest of the family. These are what I imagine things were like for Wally and his Ralts during their downtime in Verdanturf Town. And I've also been able to appreciate Wally as a character a lot more. I do really think it would have been great to see more of him. Maybe I should make like some of those fanfiction type videos about what would happen if he appeared in the advanced anime, because I think he really deserved it. Sure, we had seen Ralts and its evolutions here and there in the anime. I'm not going to go very deep into the episode that had Ralts debut and gave it this relationship with Max, because it's a whole episode on its own and honestly actually probably fits into my discussion of what Wally would be doing in the anime. The point is that I just feel Ralts would have warranted more episodes. A Pokemon that resonates with its trainer on an emotional level and grows as they grow? That's the stuff the anime is made of. So let me know what you think about Gardevoir as of Generation 3 and beyond. Did you ever catch one when you had the opportunity, or was it a bit too much effort for basically a baby that you would have to take care of for a while? I've definitely used it during replays of older games, and with what we have on the horizon, maybe it'll be worth adding it to the team. And I guess also let me know what you think about Wally. I think he's actually pretty underrated. Anyway, I should get going. A video this long is bound to leave me emotionally drained in a way that only a Gardevoir could understand. So somebody play the Gardevoir comforts you after a long day ASMR. Thank you to every channel member for your continued support, especially the great Gators. Michael Snyder, DeAndre, Viz, Justin Dowes, Bartholomew, L. Dashy, Switz Cheese, Lockadox, Gallantry, GatorKid509, TF, Cheeseburger Lasers, Mathaclock947, Nomad Nobi, Pastel Blood, Taijirai, Justin R, Volity, Cosmo Zero, Phantom, and Quago. If you would like to support, see your name here, get access to emotes for comments, live streams, sometimes early videos, and a monthly members only podcast, you can become a channel member today. You can also follow me on Twitter as well for more memes. Anyway, this is GatorX, and I'll catch you all later.
You can recharge your game and generate massive power. Pokémon trading card game Diamond and Pearl. Secret wonders. Find out what lies hidden just out of sight. Each booster pack of 10 cards sold separately.